5 new rule changes are coming to a major national sprint car series in 2025. High Limit Racing has just announced one format adjustment along with 4 car-related changes, some bigger than others. So we went right to the source to find out more. Former World of Outlaws race director, now High Limit competition director, Mike Hess was kind enough to answer questions on why these rules have been brought in, how these decisions get made, working with the World of Outlaws and other major stakeholders within the sport, shaping what a sprint car is, the costs involved, and I also made sure to find out more on High Limit's upcoming trip to Australia. None of this would have been possible without the almost 18,000 of you who have already clicked subscribe. Still though, there's a lot more of you who just need to click that subscribe button. If you have already, thank you. And thank you to the followers who've already jumped on sprintcarhub.com to get the best quality gear in all of dirt track racing. All right, here's my chat with Mike. The High Limit series just announced 5 new rule changes, 4 that are for the car and 1 for basically a format change. Before we get into them specifically, I wanted to know, how do these rule changes get made and by who?
Some of it, I mean, everything in the end, Brad gives me full control, obviously, because on the rule changes, because he can make opinions and suggestions, but at the end of the day, being as an owner and a driver, he can't make rules to benefit himself. So any rule that's made will come through me, and if I say no, that's not what I agree with or what I think, then I say no. But I mean, we just come through rules through the year, through a bunch of opinions and watching how the races go and try to put everything together and make sound decision in the off season to hopefully make next year better.
You had 16 teams run the series in 2024. Do you consult with any of those teams before announcing these changes?
Uh, we talk a lot during the year. We talked a little bit before a couple of them before we released them, but we basically base it off through the year and what we've heard and what we've seen, and then everybody has different opinions, so you just try to take the majority and make it as best as you can.
Okay, so let's get into some of the rule changes. First of all, the 1.5-inch Wicker Bill, not a huge change when you're looking at the physical Wicker Bill, but why was this change made?
Well, we ran 2-inch was legal not last year, but the year before, and just felt like we went to that during the outlaw. When I was with the Outlaws, we went to that just to try to help the racing in dirty air, and then you got to see in like the holes behind cars, the air pockets were bigger and whatnot. So then it got to switch to 1-inch to try to maybe help that a little bit. And then through the year, with the whole package, with the the new rear tires and whatnot, it just seemed like the cars weren't as stable and the drivers weren't as comfortable. You saw a lot more slides where they used to blow up and let the guy go, and instead they banged wheels because it wouldn't it didn't have any stick or any grip. So we didn't want to go back to 2-inch because we feel like that's a big change again. So we thought we'd just split the middle and try 1.5 inches, just because a 1/2 inch should, on that will help significantly, but hopefully not enough to just lock everything down again.
Another big technical change to the cars was the one in-car shock adjuster. I know this was something, or the non-wing stuff does that, midgets, and I think sprint car racing used to have it many years ago. Why decide to bring that back now?
I mean, I raced midgets for 25 years, so I don't think I ever raced a midget with less than two two adjusters in the car. So when I went wing racing, it was kind of shocking to me that the highest series doesn't allow it. So I just thought, the thinking behind that is bringing a little bit back into the driver, so that way they can either dial themselves in a little bit and move forward, or dial themselves out a little bit and move backwards, just to make the race have some, movers and faders, and just see if it makes the racing a little better and put a little bit in the driver's hands.
Another new one was the in-axle tire inflation system. Can you describe how that will work? Do other series or categories use them, and why now have them implemented into the High Limit series?
Well, they've been around. We were introduced to them mm, well before last year, and they finally got to a point where it was feasible to do it in the axle and a nice package and whatnot. Um, and at the end of the day, uh, those aren't a big performance advantage. It's only you just turn it on, you hook it to the bleeder, you put it in the axle, turn it on, and it just pumps air all the time. So your bleeder controls how much air is in the tire, and that air pump, the one that's out there, only pumps up to about 9.5 pounds. So it's not going to overinflate it or pop it. But our biggest reason for implementing them was there were so many races where a car would get a tire going low, and then we have 10 laps left, and we hurry up and get going so they can get rolling on it and try to build some air in it, and they make it 7 laps and it blows. And sometimes it blows and junks the car, or most of the time they can feel it start to go down and they let off. But we just felt like if it can save one car from blowing a tire and getting junked, I think they're worth it. And then performance wise, if you don't have them, I don't. It's not going to make your car immediately faster because you do. So I don't think it's something you have to run out and go buy.
A couple of the changes that I think are fantastic changes. Obviously, the header muffler rule, and then also lane choice, which is a format change. Uh, was that something that you speak about with drivers or speak with others on safety side of things? How do those couple of decisions get made?
I mean, the headers, the biggest reason I believe they're turning them up from what we've heard is it gets a little bit of heat off the shock and whatnot. And I mean, I came from a midget background, so I mean, I always ran with the headers right next to my head, so I didn't see a big safety issue having them inside the nerve bar there. Because I mean, I ran the Hawk engine from Australia, and it came right out right there, so I didn't feel like it was a safety concern that way. And I just wanted to add that if you're going to do it, they're welded on because it does make it a little bit of a lever with the muffler hanging out there. So, yeah, I just felt like they already got them, and the people that want to do them have done them. So, if you do it, just make sure you weld it so they don't fall off.
Mm.
Then the format change, you know, with our format, the heat winner goes to the dash, and then that quick car, if he transfers, go to the dash. So we felt like if you're starting on the pole, some tracks the pole isn't the preferred lane choice. You don't get a good start. You almost have to jump it. So we just thought we'd put it, if you earned your position there, we just thought we'd put it in that driver's hands to start where he feels like he can get the best start. And I don't think you'll see it a lot. I think you'll see it, 10% of the time is all I've noticed last year. But I still think that I still think if you put yourself in position to be on the pole of the heat, you should have the opportunity to make um, the best choice that you think you can to win that heat to get to the dash.
Yeah, no, I think those couple of changes there with the headers and the lane choice, it all makes sense and is fair. But do you take a lot of responsibility for shaping what a sprint car is? For me, especially being on the other side of the world, we look at the outlaws, we look at high limits, and we see, for the most part, maybe not on the safety side of things, but the car changes are really the car specifications. We really look at that and see that as shaping what a sprint car actually is, because there is no major governing body that actually tells us what a sprint car should or shouldn't be. So, do you take a lot of that responsibility on your shoulders and really, I guess, understand the impact that the decisions that you make have?
I don't I don't fret over it. I try to make decisions and form opinions around what I think will make the racing better and what I've heard, from drivers, team, owners, crew chiefs, and just try to make the best decision possible that helps the racing, helps everybody involved, from bottom to the top. Racing wise, I raced on a budget, so I always keep that in mind. Like, is this budget conscious to somebody that can't go out and spend the world on money? So I think looking at it as shaping how a sprint car is, I've never looked at it that way. I didn't. I, I just doing my job and trying to make our series the best we can. And if it works and somebody follows, then that's the biggest compliment you can have, I feel.
You mentioned budget, and now reading these rules, not every team has to go out and buy a shock adjuster and have a bigger Wicker Bill made, even though that's such a small cost. The tire inflation system, the little compressor that would be in the axle, obviously a bit more expensive. No one has to do that, but to be competitive to run with the high limit series now, you would have to. You would think you'd any team or driver would want to have those changes implemented with their cars. Uh, Again, you mentioned cost. Is that something that you're worried about when implementing these rules?
Well, as I said, when you do the shock adjuster, like I was a budget midget racer and I had 8 of them in my car for most chili bowls. So I didn't feel like the cost on them is something that's going to be horrible for even the lowest buck teams. The air inflation system, I still think whoever's fast is going to be fast without them. And I don't think it's going to be a performance advantage to where they can put them in and pick up 2/10. I just think it's a safety advantage to where you know where your tire's at all the time instead of it bleeding off under yellow or getting a pinhole and going down and blowing or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think anybody can still win without any of any of these rule changes. I think anybody can still win. I think the inch and a half wicker will pick on. I think you'll see that the most just because it is cheap, it's easy, and it does give you more downforce. So um, everything else, I think you could take it or leave it. But the cars that are fast are still going to be fast, especially if you go to a local show. Like if you go to Pennsylvania or California, those local cars, with or without it, are still going to be the same fast cars and same good drivers. So
Do any of the top series consult with each other at all? I've spoken with the sanctioning body here in Australia, and I know that they've told me that they've consulted with series over there in the states before we implement changes here. Is that something that you just sit down with, your own series, or are you consulting with the Outlaws or any other local areas? I know, obviously, Pennsylvania is such a hotbed for sprint car racing with so much going on there. Knoxville is one of the premier tracks. There's so many different areas over there that you need to work with, or do you just kind of make these changes and hopefully everyone else is happy to adapt when you come to town?
I think our changes aren't big enough that to where you're going to be disadvantaged, even if they didn't go with what we're doing or, or come on board. I do talk to uh, Tom Devitt at the World Outlaws just to see his opinion and what, you know, where they might go. We differ on some things. I talked to John McCoy at Knoxville to see his opinion. He's been around the sport a long time, so you know, I like his advice and his opinions, and then just car construction wise, that would make us totally different. Obviously, we want to stay in line, but we just wanted to implement a few things that we thought would hopefully help the racing a little bit and not break the bank.
Do you think those other areas and the series like the Outlaws will implement any of these changes?
Talking with them in the past, I don't think they'll do the air pumps or the headers. I think everybody's pretty much universally on board for a taller wicker bill, whether they go inch and a half or 2 inch. I think you'll see a bigger one, but that's not set in stone. I don't know for sure because obviously I'm not privy to their conversations. So I think Knoxville is seriously considering a taller wicker as well. So I think you'll see some go with some of the changes and maybe some of the changes they won't. But at the end of the day, I still think it leaves our teams competitive when they want to go run at those places, even if they don't.
And lastly, before we finish up here, the High Limit Series is coming to Australia in about 6 weeks or so. Are you going to be making your way over?
Yep, I'm coming over. Should be doing my normal job of race directing, and I just had a call last week to kind of sort some stuff with the SCCA rules and whatnot. We'll pretty much just go with the car construction that Australia has and those rules because obviously I don't know if anybody's bringing cars over, but it's easier for them to conform than all the Australia cars to conform to what we do. whatnot. And then I think you'll see a format more similar to ours we run in the States. So, yeah, should I land the 26th? Gonna go check out the Boxing Day meeting and gonna be ready to roll the 28th.
That's awesome. That'd be so good to have you here. I have you been to Australia before? Have you been to any races here?
Yeah, I came over in 2003 and actually raced a midget at the Olympic Village when they built the track inside the
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah.
can't think of what that place is called, but yeah, when
Yep,
they
yep.
built the track in there, I ran a midget inside there.